Hello, gamers. Welcome to my cellar. Been a hell of a week, hasn't it? Wow. Well, I got to do did all the recordings for Wizard Tower Games D20 Delving. They're all in the can now, so to speak. Had a good time doing them. I'm really, really looking forward to how this game's going to turn out. One of my favorite TV programs is back for a new season. It involves something that closely resembles, in many ways, our hobby. A lot of money, a lot of time. However, we don't build our Napoleonic armies and then bash each other's armies up with a hammer. Battle bots. I admire the engineering. I admire some of the ingenuity that goes into these things. The fact that these guys and girls are willing to spend tens of thousands of dollars and then just beat shit out of each other for 3 minutes at a time in this big metal enclosed glass and steel box. Who couldn't love it? Now, we all know the elephant in the room is all the bullshit that's going on with the OGL 1.1. We're going to save that. We do have some legitimate gaming topics to deal with here from the last video, so I'd like to do that. And this was in a response to the artificial intelligence art that's being done. Writers can now use AI programs like Jasper to help fatten up a sentence's word count by having AI add more words, essentially expanding what you've already written. People are using Jasper to write novels for themselves, so you'll probably see it in gaming any day now. Well, as Chris Clark will probably tell you, I could have used this years ago because I wrote very sparsely, very sparingly. And, yeah, I had trouble meeting word counts because I figured, well, I had enough words there and I explained it. I didn't need any those foo-foo adjectives and adverbs. Who needed that? That's right. It is out there. It might help. It might. Now, as an editor, God darn, I'm going to be upset trying to figure out how much to pay for somebody, pay to somebody for an article they did when they might not have done more than 75 or 80% of it themselves and had Jasper fluff it out for them. So do I have to pay them whatever my word count is, per word? Now I'm going to have to look at bigger articles and pay more for them. Of course, I can always edit the words out that I don't like, so there is always that. What's really bothering, there's a program, Chat something or other. I'm so glad I'm not teaching anymore. It got hard to find plagiarism. Somebody came up with a plagiarism screening program for teachers to use to find out when term papers and stuff that had been turned in were basically lifts, especially when term paper selling was a big deal. Well, we have a similar problem now in that the AI that makes artificial art, the Jasper that fluffs it out, and then there's this chat thing that can write you a paper on a topic you choose. So now, especially as a teacher, but also secondarily as speaking for editors, how do we know we're paying for original work? As a teacher, how do we know we're looking at our students' actual work? Now, if the stuff they've been turning in all semester or all grading period is of a certain level, and then they turn in this brilliant polished paper that rings bells. All right. All right, this is interesting. As the guy who created the Dragon Monster Compendium, I told you about him last week, the people who were eating him alive. I knew beforehand I'd get a lot of people asking me for copies, despite my disclaimer. I got a lot of private IMs. That didn't bother me too much because I knew it would happen. I just wanted to show how awesome it turned out. Foolish, perhaps. I'll own to that, but I have a thick skin and I'm not too worried about it. I won't change my stance, and it will forever just be a personal project. I have kids, so I'm used to repeating the same answer over and over and over again. Ironically, after the video was published, I got more instant messages asking for copies. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I consider myself a gamer through and through and through, but some of my fellow gamers, okay, I asked the question, okay, this is a prior question that apparently I missed. What's the inspiration behind the Zorn? I can trace a few literary and perhaps cinematic breadcrumbs, but nothing like what debuted in the first Monster Manual. I have no idea. It very well might have been a plastic monster out of a bag of monsters somewhere. I had nothing to do with the Zorn. I don't know who did. I don't know. Anybody in the old groups, both Minneapolis and Lake Geneva, or in Chicago, could have come up with that. Beats me. Sorry. All right, now here's someone that obviously can't read. He happens to be a friend of mine, but I'm going to scold him without using his name. My boulets don't actually travel on the land, but rather underneath it. They only come up to the surface to circle the prey when the greenery spaces above have been cleared out and perhaps freshly cultivated. Tales of farmers being slaughtered while gathering their crops is a common thread. The fins can break the surface, as can the jaws. Very good so far. Nummy. Horrifying, yes. Very intimidating, and my players usually pee a little. On the other hand, they've created quite an industry harvesting them. What? Did you not read that they are very rare? Very rare? In that case, and they're solitary? They don't run in packs? You might find a female with young or the eggs. Maybe a breeding pair, but that's it. If you're going to be an industry harvesting brulees, then I would expect that they would be traveling thousands of leagues to wipe out the continents of the dreaded brulee that are very, very rare to begin with. Shame on you. But it is, the rest of it's good. Yes, that's a great way to use them. Great way. And certainly they would be attracted to freshly plowed fields full of plump farmers to eat. Okay, quick question. The other day you talked about how many of the rights for monsters submitted to Dragon went back to the creator, or at least very least it's not clear. You mentioned how you own the rights to the Boule. With Hasbro pulling this greedy mess, you think it might be a bit of schadenfreude for you to exercise your rights against Hasbro with CID. It would, but I can't. There's a practice, there's a precedent in trademark law that you have to go after infringement as soon as you see it. If you let it go, you give it up. But it would be fun, wouldn't it? Who knows? I'm surprised to hear you mention that paladins don't have to be lawful good. I share that opinion and think paladins of other alignments are a lot of fun and are easily justified. I'm curious, though, as to whether or not you've seen the Dragon article from number 106. Nope, a plethora of paladins. It was a particularly early example of that concept. A paladin class for every alignment, each one with its own name and abilities, but I've always found them really strange. Just figured I'd bring it up because it's a weird article that stuck with me. P.S. Do you have a favorite example of a non-standard paladin? Either an actual character or just an idea that's rolling around in your head. I've always been very fond of lawful neutral paladins of St. Cuthbert, and the idea of a particularly loathsome, slimy, selfish, neutral evil one. Well, and there's another question after this that sort of tags along. I see a paladin as being someone who espouses certain principles, lives their life under certain principles, and certain of those principles are so sacred to them that they stop others from violating them when they must. I don't see paladins as running around with a stick up their butt enforcing whatever their alignment is. As to a non-standard paladin that I admired, it's easier to find an example of that type of behavior in some of the old westerns, particularly an old TV western called Paladin. Well, it wasn't he was, but it was called Have Gun Will Travel, and his emblem was the rook from the chess set. And that was his name, Paladin. And he was a hard ass for hire, but of course it was TV and they had the code. So if he had been called to do something that wasn't as it had been described and it wasn't a good thing, or it was taking advantage of somebody weaker, he would always refuse to do it, and oftentimes he ended up at loggerheads with the purported or would-be hirer. I don't no literary ones immediately spring to mind. But there's another question here. Could a member of Hitler's SS be a paladin if the technology were 11th century? Well, as morally repugnant as it is, if you take the definition of an individual that espouses a moral or ethical code, not having morals or ethics is a code of its own. If you take that example, yes, the answer would be yes. Would they be a vile, oily, loathsome creature? Probably, and probably would not do well. At least in my worlds, which tend to be on the whole on the side of law and justice. Yeah, it's a repugnant idea, but as an exemplar, as a champion of a particular mindset, then yeah. All right, came up in my game. Players battling Medusa. Character wanted to put an illusion of a mirror in front of said Medusa. Would this reflect her image, possibly causing her to be petrified? 5e. I started with AD&D in 1980. You're welcome. No. I would automatically assume Medusa can see through anything but the most powerful, potent illusions. something cast by a really high-level illusionist, or something put together by a really, really high-level illusionist. Because after all, Medusa's pretty high-level herself. You know, I mean, coming out of Greek mythology and such, that kind of gives her an elder monster status at the very least. So, no, I would say no. She'd see through it. Now, it would reflect back. Sure, okay. I'm not going to say it would go through the illusion and pierce the caster. Maybe it would. It's your world. You decide. But let's face it, Medusa is a highly sophisticated, highly intelligent, highly pissed off individual with near deity level capabilities. My take. Your mileage may vary. I've heard of this advice that a DM must always say yes to the players. However, I believe there's a time and place to say no. What's your view of this? And there was an immediate follow-up on this by someone else. You have the right to say no as a DM. There are times when no is the best answer a DM can give. Absolutely. If you end up saying yes, 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 you'll end up with a bunch of mollycoddled, overpowered, obnoxious, self-centered, narcissistic players. Yuck. I wouldn't want to run games for them. Of course you got to say no. No, it didn't work. No, you didn't make your saving throw. No. It said you broke your leg, you broke your leg. Absolutely you got to say no. Sometimes, if you're a wise and benevolent DM, such as myself, you might say no because you know that if you let them do it, they just end up all killing themselves. Now, if you're going to subscribe to let them do whatever they want, say yes all the time, then teach them a lesson. And let them attack something that didn't look like it was very much and get their butts wiped all over the floor by having bitten off more than they can chew. Would that have been a good time to say no? Well, I would think so. If it's your home campaign, you're playing with friends. Now, if you're running a one-off at a con, let them do whatever stupid shit they want to do. Okay. Now, as I spoke on last time, there's a big tempest in our teapot right now, and that is the Wizards leaking that there's going to be a new OGL. Now, my Facebook feed, this thing blew up with stuff about this topic. So I'm going to read just a few, and then I'm going to comment on them all, so to speak. This is the biggest thing that's roiled our hobby for a long, long time. It's gotten more individuals of the hobby, brought more of them together than Hasbro probably thought was going to happen. So I'm going to read some of these because there's some very good points here. Hazards of the Bro has tried this before with Fourth. It went over like a lead balloon. People would create new games. Creators whose games relied on the OGL will modify so they no longer require it. Life will go on, just not for official D&D. WotC will feel the backlash from the public and the publishers who have supported them with their own 5e and OGL content. I publish myself through DM's Guild, and I'm seriously thinking about folding my 5e writing, trying to write system-neutral only products. I guess we'll see how bad they make it for those who enjoy the hobby and how much more it will cost to play newer editions. Hasbro had better make sure that they don't kill their golden goose. A little of something is better than zero from nothing. Gamers are exceedingly adaptable and continue to play their game their way. Should Hasbro insist on putting up all these legal and financial obstacles, one can see a time coming when gaming sites make less content for D&D and make greater amounts for alternative systems. Then a negative feedback loop begins and escalates. Hasbro, make more money. WotC, adds more obstacles. Players, screw this and that. Content creators, my views on D&D are falling. Time to switch to another system, Hasbro. Where is the money? WotC, adds more obstacles. Rinse and repeat ad nauseum until Hasbro shuts down and sells off the IP. Well, we'd like that, wouldn't we? Okay. WotC and Hasbro simply aren't needed anymore to play D&D anyway. There's millions of D&D games that don't have that brand name, but that's all it is, a name. The game is entrenched culturally at this point and isn't going anywhere with or without WotC. What WotC Hasbro pulls off might create a golden age of rule system designs with new creators designing better rule systems. If anything, the OGL might have caused stagnation in the hobby, making for clones of D&D with nothing innovative really springing up. I am hoping someone will create a new open game system everyone can use to run their games for real, putting a drain on WotC intake so someone with cash to burn can purchase D&D from Hasbro. You are spot on with your assessment of Hasbroken. Since their recent products have been lackluster or divisive with too much attention to real-world social politics, many people are becoming reluctant to open their wallets for them. So they're trying to browbeat the money out of those who are doing better than themselves with the product. I feel that I'll have to take a break from their nastiness and send my money and attention to games that are not associated, like Traveler. Hasbro are just mad that third parties make far better material than the current WotC team are capable of. Take the mechanics, remove all the references to any OGL, refuse to make content for 6e, and pivot to other systems. Ostracize WotC and spend your money and creativity elsewhere. Personally, I'm going with Shadow of the Demon Lord. Okay. A few comments as now. There certainly Wizards and Hasbro don't realize that we can continue playing for the next 60 years without anything they ever put out, if we choose, if we want to. Because we'll either homebrew our own stuff, like we did way back in the day, and share it around to our friends, and yeah. I would imagine there's a lot of people that are currently working on 5e stuff that are putting the brakes on. You know, what I see is some really ignorant executives. Not stupid, or they wouldn't be the executives they are. Ignorant of the game industry. Ignorant of this division of their hobby. Of their company, our hobby. They really don't get it. We're easily riled. some would say too easily, too often. I can just see the board meeting. Wow, profits are down in 2022. Why is that? Well, nobody points out that the year before was the pandemic and all of gaming of all kinds went through the roof, and now people are free to go outside of their home anymore. So the big kahuna says, what the hell's going on? Production says, I don't know, we got everything out on time. And designers say, we make great stuff. And because they believe they do, because of the previous year's sales. Advertising says, we don't know, we're doing the same stuff we always did. And so they look around to find out why their market share isn't what it was before, and they seized upon the third-party people and decided to squeeze every bit of juice out of that lime that they could, not realizing that once you do that, you can't make any more margaritas. Bad idea. Now the problem with these pipe dreams about we'll make a new system that nobody can fool with, yada da da. Nobody's going to make up something from scratch for nothing. It just takes too much time and effort. Even if you, especially if you've got like 12 different people making 12 parts of the system, it's even more work coordinating all that stuff with 12 different inputs. A lot of work, a lot of effort, a lot of free time spent on this for no return. And I don't believe that there's any altruists out there that are willing to spend 1,500 hours putting together a new game system or coordinating with others to put together a new game system for no return and just give it away. I don't believe that individual exists. Now, if I'm wrong and it happens, well, hell, I'll probably be dead anyway. After all, I turned 74 in a few days. And it's not anything that'll be done right away. I don't believe that's a feasible pipe dream. I don't think that's going to happen. I believe Paizo, I believe, is. I saw something today earlier about they have some sort of open gaming license permission or something they're inviting people to get involved in. All right, this the thing nobody's remembering is that these are all based on leaks. As I sit down here tonight to do this, to be released on Saturday morning, the 14th. Oh, that's my birthday. What do you know? It'll be released on my birthday. Number 245 is fitting. Anyway, nothing is sure yet. Nothing. I've seen some really interesting theories that this was leaked to judge the pushback, that this was leaked to sabotage their plans and get people pissed off before they just announced it. This is leaked to enable them to modify and take off the more objectionable sharp corners off the thing. So until it officially comes out, all we're doing is exercising our right to free speech and spout off about things we know not of. We know nothing of yet. Now, if it comes out, at the worst case scenario, that they're going to squeeze everything. Who are they kidding? Paizo is not going to give them 25% of their gross sales. Gross? That's ludicrous. Green Ronin, Cold Press, same thing. That's ludicrous. Nobody can do that. Now, if it was a percentage of net, well, then that's a licensing fee. Maybe, maybe not. Gross? No. They know nobody's going to do that. I think what they are trying to do is they're trying to get these big companies to come to the table and cut a special sweetheart deal with each of them and still get a big piece of their pie and call it a licensing fee or something of that nature. I think Hasbro's looking for a way to squeeze every drop of juice out of the line. I think they're greedy. I think they're ignorant. They do not understand this hobby. They obviously do not understand gaming in general, or they would have probably noticed that all their other games under the Hasbro line did well during the pandemic, especially anything newer, and have fallen off since the pandemic. But did they make that association? No. Must be easy to get a job on the board at Hasbro. I'd like to apply next time one of their doddering idiots decides to take his golden parachute and go live in Paraguay. What might happen if they do? I've spoken to a couple of 3 lawyers. I've spoken to a couple of 3 people that have spoken to their lawyers. And can it be enforced? Ooh, going to be really hard. If it goes to arbitration, and it looks like I know of at least 3 legal firms that are getting their ducks in a row for small publishers to form a class action suit. If it proves to be the worst case scenario, and they're salivating. If it goes to arbitration, to an arbitration panel or to a jury, the lawyers' opinions, those lawyers I mentioned previously, and these are just opinions, and again we're speculating, but their opinions are that, especially if it goes to a jury, and they paint Hasbro as a greedy money-grubbing pig, that the verdict will be fine for 6E, and I refuse to call it 1D&D. The arrogant bastards want to compare it to the One Ring, or, oh, come on, give me a break. Anyway, I believe that they'll say, fine, your 1.1 OGL can apply to 6E and anything thereafter. However, because you worded it so vaguely the first time, because you went on and publicly told people you wouldn't ever change it, then people that are doing 5E and down meaning down to original, they're free to do what they would do because you told them they could. That's what I'd like to see happen. That's what I think we have a good chance of seeing happen. But I'm not a legal expert, and I'm only reiterating to you what I have heard from several different sources. The consensus seems to be that they will have been found to have overstepped themselves, and that they'll have a hard time enforcing that on newer content. I hope that's the way it comes out. Now, I don't have a dog in the hunt anymore we never used the OGL at Eldridge when we were publishing there. And I sold the Weaver Queen to Jared and Old Guard Games, so it's not even my worry anymore. So I don't have a dog in the hunt, but I still think it's ridiculous. I still think that it's a money grab, and I still think it's going to be a big mistake for Hasbro. And maybe it'd be a good idea to see a couple of heads at Wizard roll. Now, they just got a new person in who is obviously a poor fit at Wizards, because this is an individual that comes from the corporate side and has, apparently from statements made already, little or no understanding of the industry. It's kind of like deciding you're going to buy, percentage, the controlling percentage in a stud farm, and then wanting to know why the horses couldn't breed faster. Well, you got to understand your market. You got to understand your product. And you got to understand your buyer. And I think they've done a really, really, really piss poor job of doing that. We'll see. We'll see. Again, as of Thursday, there's been no clarification. Now, by the time this comes out Saturday morning, they may have made an official release on Friday, in which case all of this was just more of the usual hot air and blather. Let's talk about gaming and gaming questions, and not worry about this legal crap, because it really, as players, it doesn't affect us in the least. Because we'll just play what the hell we want. The people that will affect are the producers, and they shouldn't be affected this way. Not when they were told, here's the way you do it, and we'll never change it on you. In the little teeny weeny tiny print until our profit margin drops and we decide that you must be the scapegoats because our marvelous marketing department, our wonderful creatives, and our they couldn't possibly be wrong. All right. On that cheerful note, I will, let's see, what am I doing? Well, I'll be back here before then. That's right. Next weekend, I'll be at Ice and Dice in Cincinnati, out near the Eastgate Mall. I believe it's the Eastgate Holiday Inn. So come on out. Watch for D20 Delving. Go to the website. Check it out. We had a ball doing these things. I think it's going to be amazing. Dodata Gobi. Hello, and welcome to my cellar.
He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs. Still quite a feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Last man around when them rates went down. Calling Gary in that Lake Geneva town. Hey Gary, it's an awful mess. Let me edit, we'll have success. D&D and Dragon Magazine. He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs, but he's still quite a feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Magic missile, it's a mortar shell. Make it hit in the first level spell. Brought psionics to the game to attack that wizard's brain. ESR and fantasy, collection of micro armory. Titan with tramp under a tree, high as could be. He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs, but he's still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar.